it's April from April's Home, and today I thought I would take you on a quick tour of the garden. It is the end of May, the last couple of days of May, and here's what's going on in my garden. As you can see, the sage here is in full bloom in my herb garden. The hummingbirds love it, the bees love it. It's just so pretty. It just comes up every year. I started it from a little 4-inch pot, and it's just really taken off over the last couple of years. So that's the sage. I've replanted some little thyme plants here and here, and we'll see how they do. I may have to replant them. This is the rosemary. It's really nice. It already bloomed. It's got a lot of bug action going on here, quite a bit. You can see all these little spit bugs on this plant. So I need to look into that and make sure it's not damaging the rosemary. Here's one of the blueberries that I transplanted from the other side of the garden. It wasn't doing well because the dogs were running too close to it, but it is really thriving in this pot here. You can see it's fully loaded. Here are the currants that I planted this year. They are doing nicely. It looks like there might be a few little berries here and there on them all, except for the little tiny one there. I'll probably have to move that. I planted it a little too close, but wanted to get it in the ground and let it start growing. And I've put in some moss and some Corsican mint, and that's doing pretty well. And then here is a pot where I had a little tiny blueberry. It's just in its first year, but it does have a few little blueberries on it. And then the nasturtium is just really growing all through the garden so nicely. I'm really happy with it. It's the first year that I've gotten it to really take nicely, and is hopefully going to fill the garden with beautiful color here real soon. Here's a little teeny tiny shady corner. I've got some nasturtium there and a little fern that just kind of came back from last year, and then a little hosta. And here's my tree here. I still need to weed in this area. But I've gotten a lot of the weeding done from last year. It's just taking a bit longer. We've had a ton of rainy days, so I haven't been able to come out and weed much, but the plants are loving all the rain. You can see how beautifully everything's growing. Here's a blueberry again being taken over by this beautiful nasturtium, but we have a pretty blossom there. The grapes are really unruly still. I haven't spent much time working on this side of the garden, but they're doing really well. I have got them up off the ground, some of the vines here, just temporarily until I can plan what I'm going to do with this grape. But you can see the start of quite a few grapes there coming along. We have a few of these little bunches of grapes all throughout the vine, so that's going to be exciting. And you can see the peas are just really growing up the little trellises here. Here's my other pot. Kind of is leaning away from, probably leaning away from the grapevines to get to the sun better. So next year I'll have to pull these out a little further. But they are doing really nicely, and I'm excited about that. Here's a little garden here. This was the black beans that I planted, and none of them, not one, came up. So I do need to do a little weeding. All that rain has brought out quite a bit of weeding. But what I did here was plant the little ends off some green onions that I was using in the kitchen, and they are growing back really nicely. And then 2 of the celeries from the kitchen as well. This one did not do so well, you can see, but this one's still thriving, and I have another one in the kitchen ready to go. And I definitely need to do some weeding here. Get out a couple of these big ones. These are the Anasazi beans, and of course very few came up, and this year something is eating a lot of the bean plants that I have in the garden. So I'll have to keep close watch on those, kind of baby along the few plants that did come up and see how they grow. Then I have quite the dilemma with the sweet potato garden here. I thought me and my husband dug through this pretty well, trying to clear away the potato little starts. There were a few little ones left, but we definitely must have missed quite a few. And with all that rain the last couple of weeks, the potatoes have come up and just really sort of drown out these little sweet potatoes. So I need to make a choice and decide how many of the potato plants I want to remove to let those sweet potatoes thrive. So it's kind of a dilemma because the potato plants seem to be doing so well. I don't want to tear them out, but at the same time I want to give those sweet potatoes a chance. So that's a dilemma I will be thinking about. Maybe I'll take out a few and clear the space for the sweet potatoes, but I definitely have to address that now that the sun has returned, and we'll have plenty more opportunity to be out in the garden. Over here is my little wild pot with a currant in it, as well as all my bachelor buttons, which have continued just blooming so pretty. This was just a volunteer. I didn't plant this here. It planted itself, and I left it because I thought it was really pretty. So we have a blue one here, and a little white one here. And this currant bush, you can see, is doing really well. It's covered in little berries, so I think this year it's going to do really nicely. And it looks like this sedum is going to bloom for the first time. So I'm really excited to see that as well. And then I may have to move some of this because it's kind of crowding out this currant bush. I also need to thin out my ferns here, pull out some of the dead ones and let those new ones kind of grow back up. Here's the squash and corn bed. The squash is doing pretty well. This is the acorn squash. It takes a little bit longer to get big. The zucchini is getting really big. We have some yellowing leaves here. I need to feed these maybe a little bit. And also double check for any insects. I've got a lot of pests this year. You can see a lot of little holes there. But they usually do pretty well anyway, despite the bugs eating on them a bit. And I'm excited to have zucchini here anytime. And the corn in the back is just, again, for decorative use. I like to just have a little bit growing. My garden isn't big enough to have a really big patch, but I always like to tuck in a few if I'm not devoting a whole bed to them. So that's how the corn's doing. Here's more of that succulent that just kind of plants itself everywhere. Again, this one also looks like it's ready to bloom, and I've not seen it bloom before, so I'm really excited about that. And then this little pot here has some hens and chicks and also some of this same kind of succulent, but it wasn't draining, and so my husband drilled some holes in it so it would do a little bit better. So hopefully this will fill out this year. And this is my garlic patch. I need to address some of the little yellowing tips here. I've never had that happen in here before. I need to probably, at the end of this garlic season, need to really amend this bed and add some fresh soil and compost and stuff into this bed to kind of richen it back up. The oregano I got is doing nicely, and these are those little $1 shallots that I planted. They've all come up, every single one, and they're doing really well. So I'm super happy that I took that gamble and bought those shallots at the end of the season on clearance. So the garlic is doing well, and it should be another month or so. You can see the scapes are starting to come up, so they'll be blooming soon. These few back here are elephant garlic, nice big blossoms here about to open up, and we'll get to see those. That's going to be exciting. And here is the kale bed. We've got some cilantro over here. I need to trim that down so it doesn't go to seed, and make some, maybe grind some up and put it in ice cube trays to preserve it for summer use. And then also just make some salsa. There's my little dill plant. The two artichokes in the back are doing great. And this kale is all ready to go. So we're excited to have kale this week. It just shot up so tall and nice with this rain the last couple of weeks. So here's my sad little blueberry patch over here that I'm trying to revive from last year. A couple of the plants that I got this year from Burpee did not take very well. I've lost about, probably half of them, or maybe at least a third of them. I'm not sure what's causing them to not do very well, so I need to research that and help these along. For some reason they're not doing well here. They did better in pots, which I find really strange. I thought that they would enjoy being in the ground, but I may just switch back to growing them in big barrels. This here, growing on the edge of this garden, is one of my most favorite succulents. It blooms this absolutely beautiful magenta flower. I've been enjoying it the last few summers, and it just blooms all summer long, all the way into the fall. It's absolutely my favorite. I have another little pot of this ready to plant on the other side of the garden where I'm putting in a rock garden, so I'll show you the name of it. So I'll show you the tag for that if you'd like to pick this up. It's absolutely so easy growing, and it's just so pretty, and I love that it blooms all summer. Here's my new little gooseberry bush, and it's also doing really well. I've got a couple big gooseberries there, which is really exciting. I didn't expect to have many this year. It's the first year, but it's really exciting that there are a couple. The praying mantis still hasn't hatched, but we're waiting for that. It usually has to be pretty warm. And here's the pink lemonade blueberry. It's doing really nicely. It definitely has a different leaf shape than normal, so I'll be really interested how that grows. Got some pots here ready to plant some of my fall veggies. I have some really fun Brussels sprouts and little things that look like Brussels sprouts, but they're miniature kale called Kalettes. And I'll be planting those here any day, and I'll show you what that looks like too and the varieties that I got. And I'll be growing them now through the month of June, and then put them in the garden in mid-July. Okay, so I thought I'd pop inside for a little bit in the middle of my little end of May garden tour and show you some of the seeds that I am starting for my fall garden. I'm gonna go ahead and start those now. That way they'll get a good start. I have some bigger pots that I'll transplant them in, and then as soon as the summer harvest is in, I'll make room in my garden for some fall plants. I also have a few flower seeds that I'm going to try to work with as well. It's It's a little bit on the late side for those, but since my sunflowers didn't come up, I'd like to try to get some zinnias in. Originally I was planning on doing zinnias, but I ran out of room, so maybe there will be room now that the sunflowers haven't come up. But the first thing I'll share with you is some of the wonderful things I'm excited about growing for fall. These are Brussels sprouts called Hestia from Territorial Seed Company. It says they're apple green. They take about 100 days to grow. So I've never grown Brussels sprouts, so I'm really excited about that. But what I'm also very excited about are Kalettes. So they are a type of Brussels sprout, but they look like little miniature kale plants on the Brussels sprout column. So it's sort of a cross between a Brussels sprout and a kale plant. That is right up my alley. I adore both kale and Brussels sprouts. So I got a few varieties of those. I'm really, really hoping that they grow well. So these are called Snowdrop, and these are 140 days to maturity. And it says it's our latest maturing Kalette, and they're ready to harvest in January and February. So these will be almost a winter garden, really. And then we've got this one here called Mistletoe, and they take 125 days. It says they ripen right in time for the holidays, so that's very exciting. Again, cute little miniature kale Brussels sprouts called Kalettes. And this one is called Autumn Star. So this one will be more of my fall one. This matures in 110 days. It's the earliest maturing variety of the little Kalette series. So I decided to get all of the Kalette series that Territorial Seed had. I'm really, really excited about these. It says melding the flavor, texture, and beauty of kale in the size and form of Brussels sprouts. So I really hope I can keep these growing in my garden, and I really hope I can keep the pests away. So I'll definitely be planting those. And then also a couple varieties of kale. I have a bunch of kale growing out in the garden right now, of course, but I love to get in a fall harvest. It does really well around here. It grows all year long. We have fairly mild weather. It does get cold towards the end of December and in January, of course, and occasionally we have a little bit of cold weather before then, but overall I've always been successful when I grow my kale through the fall. So I've got some dwarf green curled and one called Starbore F1, 45 day and 50 day. So we'll go ahead and plant some of those too. Got some little sticks here that I cut out, probably a jug or something that I cut up to make little labeling sticks. I've got these little Jiffy pots all hydrated. You just pour 1.25 cups of water according to the package direction and let them kind of grow on their own. And then I've got some zinnias. I can't decide. Some I will start in here and some I will directly sow out in the garden. Let's see, what's this? This is, oh, also cornflowers. Again, I'll probably start a few in here and a few as a direct sow. And then I was organizing some of my older seeds and I found some leftover zinnias from previous years. Probably won't grow these bells of Ireland this year, even though they are old seeds. Some more zinnias and a couple packs of sunflowers. These are really old. I'm just very curious if I can get any of these to come up, since all of the ones I ordered this year, none came up. So we'll see what we can do. I'll just toss these out in the garden. I don't know that they will grow. They were from 2015, so that is a really old seed. But we will give it a try. So I'm going to go ahead now and work on planting some of this kale and some of these Brussels sprouts, and I'll be right back to show you what that looks like. Okay, so I've started planting these up. I've got my tags all made. These were made out of little cut up milk containers. That was a tip I learned from my grandma. I've got my first set of seeds here, Autumn Star. I've already put 2 in each. There are only 25 seeds. And you can see how teeny tiny they are. Let me go ahead and show you. You can barely even see them in there. Just teeny tiny little pile of seeds there, and that's 12 seeds. So quite a few. I've put 2 in each. So I've got my Brussels sprouts and Kalettes planted, and now I'm about to do 6 of each kale and then 6 of each of the flowers. I think I'm only going to start in here the cut and come again zinnias and the bachelor buttons, just so I can see if I can get those growing. The rest I'll direct sow. And I saved some of the seeds here to go ahead and plant in my other pot. And what I'm doing is I'm just kind of using this little plastic thing to make a 1/4 inch little divot in there, drop the seeds in, then use this to cover it up, and then make sure to keep that on the side of the 6 that are that variety so that I can keep track of the varieties. Hopefully I can do that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of these planted up. Okay, so here we have all 4 of these Jiffy Pot little sets here planted up. I'll have to find a nice spot for them in the window. They're all labeled. I'll have to be really careful not to move those. Kind of keep watching them. I haven't started plants on my own in a really long time. I used to do it all the time. So it's nice to be able to do that. I'm really eager to start my fall garden. And I'm going to go ahead and just take these seeds out, the rest of my leftover seeds and bachelor buttons, and get them planted out in the garden in hopes that we can get sunflowers growing in that area where the sunflowers didn't grow. So let's go ahead and head back out to the garden now and see the rest of what the garden looks like at the end of May. The parsley's doing well. The chives are blooming. I've had terrible luck with the basil this year. I've replanted it 3 times now. This one kind of is going okay, but you can see it's just getting damaged. And then, so I decided to try some purple basil. I've had luck with that in the past. We'll see how that does. And then my lettuce is doing great. We've already been enjoying some of this on barbecues, on our hamburgers. And there's enough here to start making a little salad, so really excited about that. They came up nicely and nothing seems to be bothering them. Here's another pot with blueberries and nasturtium, looking like they're ready to just start blooming anytime now. And my little blueberry here. Here's my peppers and tomatoes. They're starting to do really well. You can see I've already got jalapenos on a lot of these plants, so that's really good. Here's the little plant that I was telling you about, the little succulent with the blooms. Oh, it is called purple ice plant. So I would definitely recommend this plant. If you have similar growing conditions here, we do get a lot of rain, but we have really hot summers. And it lasts through our very soggy falls and winters, does just fine and keeps coming back. Still need to get my pineapple sage in and the rest of my Corsican mint and this little lavender. I was thinking about planting these over in a rock garden. And here are more beans, again, not doing as well as they normally do. A lot of them didn't come up. You can see how sparse it is. I've tried, as I was thinning, to replant some of them. I'm not sure if the birds are pecking at them or what, but they're just not doing as well as they normally do, so we'll have to keep watch on these. I'm hoping that when we start getting the hot summer weather, they just start growing really well, and I may still consider trying to tuck in a few extra seeds and seeing if those come up. Here are my cherry tomatoes, as well as my tomatillo. Again, a lot of bug action on this tomatillo. We had a very mild winter this year, so I think we're having a lot of bugs as a result of not having a really cold winter this year. And here's how the little flower garden is doing. The little pink tape here is to keep my dogs out, and it worked for a little while, but my lab, even though he's so big, so tall, he's super skinny, so he has been sneaking through there. He likes to smell the flowers and explore this corner here, so we'll have to keep working on that, but we're trying to teach him to stay out of here. And so far he's doing pretty good. So we've got some really pretty nasturtiums and they're all doing well. These seem to be like a variegated variety. The leaves are a little different. The blueberry that I transplanted here is doing fine. Some of the cosmos are doing okay. The salvia is doing really nicely. You can see here just the start of some of the flowers. And I've also planted this pretty one, and some of the other little flowers have started coming up. And here's another really pretty nasturtium flower that just opened up today, I believe. So that is just a beautiful color. I've only ever grown orange, so having this nice different variety of different colors is so beautiful. And then this is really, really exciting to me. My apple trees are just doing amazing. They are covered in little apples. You can see them all. Here's one. They're just covered in apples. The whole tree is just covered all the way up. So it's really, really exciting. These apples were wonderful last year. I only got a few because it was their first year. So I'm really excited to see how many are on the tree this year. Here's one of my pots of flowers from Mother's Day. I think it's so pretty over here in the corner. Still working on replanting some of the sedum in the cracks. I've got quite a few of it done. I like to plant it in the little crevices here along the border. And that rain brought up more of these little thistly weeds we've got to take out. The fig plant is still doing well. Sadly, none of the sunflowers that we planted came up. I saw a few come up about that far and then they disappeared. So I'm wondering if the birds decided to eat them. But really, considering how many we planted and only seeing a few come up, pretty disappointed that more didn't actually come up in here. So we will still have to work on finding something to go in this area. And then here's my other apple tree here. Its apples are a little bit bigger. It was ahead with its blooming and stuff. You can see there's a little apple there and here. It's really weighing down these branches. I'm really gonna have to make sure that the dogs don't bump into them if they sag down lower. Maybe consider propping them up somehow. You can see just all the apples through here. They're just all through. This whole column is just solid apples. Here's a better angle where the sun, you can kind of see it better without the sun right there. Kind of goes a little hard to see there, but they are just covered. And it is so exciting. Look at all of that. They're so cute and tiny. Then the really exciting thing is the asparagus here. I was so worried that it wouldn't come up, but a lot of it have come up. I'll go walk in there so we can see them up close. So I've made a little spot here to walk on these rocks. One thing with the asparagus bed is you can't use tools to weeds. You have to get them while they're little like this. So you need to come and spend a day just plucking out all these little weeds before they get too big. Most of the asparagus have come up. Let's see if you can see this little tiny one here. There's a little teeny tiny one there. Some of them have come up and started to turn into the little ferns, the asparagus ferns. Oh, this one has finally come up. It's the thinnest little one here. That's nice to see. There's only a couple that didn't come up. Took a very long time, so I was really excited to see them all. There's a big one. And here's a big one, and we'll just let these grow. Here's a really, really tall one here, all the way up past my knees, almost to my waist. There's a little one here. Definitely need to stay on top of these weeds. That's definitely going to be my chore this week. Here's a really neat one. And I didn't realize it until I was looking online the other day a little bit more about them, that they have these little berries that grow on them. I believe that I think I was reading that they might be toxic to dogs, but luckily this is in a fenced off area. They don't come in here. So that'll be neat. I had no idea that this was how asparagus grew until I started researching it before I planted them. It's definitely doing really well. It's hard to film this so that you can see it, but it is full. There's only a couple. Here's one that didn't come up and one other one. But otherwise, there's a little asparagus by each of these pink flags. And again, that rain brought out a lot of weeds here that I will need to be picking this weekend. And here's one of the blueberries that didn't do too well, and one that seems to be doing okay. I wanted to do blueberries down here at the end of the asparagus garden, but something is not growing well. I'll have to perhaps try a different variety. We'll have to keep experimenting with that. But I'm just extremely pleased with the asparagus here. Such a fun project. Little dove that visits our garden with his mate every day to eat what the other birds drop from the feeders. They're very sweet little birds. And here's my little tree here. And this is the little flower that my daughter got me for it. It is so pretty. I just love it. It's perfect size for this little pot. Little teeny tiny flowers, but very vibrant. I think it is called Nemesia or something along those lines. It's just really pretty. It's an annual, and I've never planted one before, but I just love it. My little ferns and my little tree. So that's what my garden is looking like at the end of May. It's just starting to be able to be harvested a little bit with lettuce, as well as the kale over here. Just beautiful. Between the chickens and their fresh eggs and this kale and lettuce, I'm very happy to be able to walk out and pick a few fresh things to eat. So I hope you enjoyed taking a look at everything in my garden at the end of May. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe for more videos from April's Home. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you later. Goodbye.